change.
Now, so we're going to prove to you two things. One, it's better that society and people perceive love to be a choice, because then we give people the responsibility over their own life and what they do, and also the perceived notion that they can actually change their life with the choices they make, even when it comes to love, especially when it comes to love. And the second, that it is better to be wanted than to be needed. So, to begin, why it's good for society? Why society perceiving love as a choice would give people in society the responsibility and the feeling that they can change what they do. Let's take, for example, toxic relationships. A lot of people in toxic relationships, for one, feel like they're uncontrollably there. They can't help not be in that relationship. They just uncontrollably love this person. They can't quit this person. And it feels to them, and they also perceive it as to be uncontrollable. What if society and then people in general perceive it to be a choice? Then they think that they can choose otherwise. It's not uncontrollable. And we want to make the statement that even if that is uncontrollable, thinking that it's not is actually better for the individual. I will give people the opportunity for POIs after I finish this one. So, all right, clarification, sorry.
Are we talking about all forms of loving someone, including family members, or just romantic partnerships?
Just romantic partnerships. So, to continue. Yes, so let's take, for example, just general things that may be uncontrollable, like addiction to drugs, right? It's kind of uncontrollable, it's an uncontrollable need, but it is a choice that you can make to change it. Whether the need is still uncontrollable, that's debatable and probably is the case, but the same thing is with toxic relationships. If people perceive it to be a choice, then they can change their life and they have the responsibility to do so. That'd be really good. The feeling that you're not helpless, you did choose this, you can't choose otherwise, even if that's not exactly the thing, and the case whether your love is uncontrollable, you can still move beyond it. Now, second, I will take any POIs about this point. Anybody? Okay. Moving on. It is better to be wanted than to be needed. Now, we also believe that it's a better basis for any relationship, that you're with this person because you want them, not because you need them. Now, if you uncontrollably love someone, then you need them. You can't help be with this person. You have to put up with whatever they do because you need them. Now, yes, you may, have to, even in the case where it would be uncontrollable and you need them, you could still have complaints and ask for things to be better, but at the end of the day, you can't really leave them. You just uncontrollably love them, you can't help it. But if it was a choice, if you perceived it to be a choice, if you wanted somebody instead of needed somebody, you wouldn't put up with it. You would only be with somebody that you want, and the other person would feel very much more loved. For example, of something that you would prefer to do, want to do rather than need to do. I want to go to class rather than I need to go to class. It feels better, and it's a better relationship for both participants where they want to do something rather because they just need to. Eventually it becomes a burden. Yes?
Regardless, the choice to leave is disconnected from the choice to love someone. More broadly, there is generally a gap between impulse and action, and that is always a choice.
Well, that's not exactly the case. And that's why we want to, this brings me back to my first point. It's better to be perceived as a choice. If you perceive it to be uncontrollable, but let's do otherwise. It's a really hard thing to ask somebody to do. It's something that religious people ask gay people to do for a very long time. It's like, yeah, you're gay, you can control that. But you can choose not to be gay, just marry a woman instead of a man. But instead, we're saying, no, well, you actually do have the choice, rather than it being uncontrollable, and it being perceiving as being a choice rather than being conceived as uncontrollable actually makes it more probable that you would act otherwise than your impulses. The second that, for example, gay marriage and it became okay in society, and it is perceived now to just be uncontrollable, and therefore, and it's okay, and it's not a choice, you can't, it's not a choice. It's the second where, people would stop just marrying the other sex because, despite the fact that they're gay. Second, that you don't perceive it as a choice. You perceive it to be uncontrollable. The the chances that you're not going to act on that are very, very slim. I'm going to take another one before it's last chance. Second house, Michal. Okay. So I'm going to reiterate a little bit more on why it is better to be wanted. No, okay. Yeah, I'm going to reiterate more about why it's better to be wanted. So it's better to...
Just to be clear, do you think that people actually can control their attraction to someone?
We say that it doesn't matter. That's our point. It doesn't matter whether you actually, to love someone, it's uncontrollable or controllable. The point is that you want to perceive it as a choice. Because you should be above that and should take responsibility about that. Our argument, and we want to make it very clear to the judges, that this whole framing is that despite the fact whether it is actually uncontrollable or a choice, what really matters is that you perceive it to be a choice, and that that's better for society and you as an individual. And the reasons why we explain why that would be better for society and you as an individual is because it actually gives you the responsibility in your mind and everybody else's mind that you can change your life and you should change your life despite any other thing, and that what you do with your life is a choice. And you can change habits and you can change your wants. The truth is, you probably can with enough hard trial and error. Whether that is the case before like being attracted to someone or not, doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, if you perceive it hard enough, chances are you will make better choices, or at the very least the choices you perceive to be better. And that's why we won the debates.
Prime Minister very much for the speech. We're very happy to call upon the leader of the opposition.
Okay, well, I guess you can hear me because this is a Zoom, so this is great. We're going to start in 3, 2, 1, go. Look, I'm going to do 2 things here. First of all, I'm going to explain to you why in our world we have more autonomy in love, and then we're going to explain to you why it's just create better relationship in our government side. We have more, we are entering and staying more in bad relationships that are not good for us. Cool. Before we do that, let's do a little bit of summary about what we do for. What are the things? First of all, they are talking about. Sorry. Yes. First of all, they are talking about toxic relationships. I think the toxic relationships are outside of this event. Why is that true? Because inside of toxic relationships, there is usually manipulation, which means that this other side is likely to give you the feeling that you actually care about them and you actually want to stay in love with them. So even if it's a choice, you are actually likely to believe that you're choosing to fall in love with them and stay in that relationship. They never proved to us a tipping point of where actually people are going to go out and believe that it's going to stay in this relationship, so this is out of the way. And then tell me, oh, it's better to be wanted than to be needed because of that. So this is also out of the debate, because like Naomi is pointing out in the UI, the fact that you are falling in love with someone doesn't mean you necessarily choose to go into a relationship. I mean, all of us had crushes on people in the past and got into this relationship, which means that in both sides of the debate, when I'm entering a relationship, I'm doing it by choice. The question is if I'm choosing that because I fell in love, because I have to, or it's because I choose to fall in love and then I choose to enter this relationship. This is what involved in this debate, and let's go to my first case about autonomy of love. Autonomy of love. Yes, that's correct. Sorry. So first of all, if you want to understand it, we just don't know that you're likely to be, it's going to be so easy for you to choose whoever you fall in love with. Why is that? 2 reasons. A, biology. Okay, we are falling in love by some kind of hormone that we cannot explain, can release because of different situations in the environment and stuff like that, which means you are not likely to be able to choose it, and you are not actually likely to control it. Second of all, we just don't understand this psychological mechanism that creates us to fall in love. We cannot control our subconscious and stuff like that, which means you are not likely to actually choose who you are falling in love with. What does it mean? It means in their side you need to protect the false notion in which everybody in this society thinks that you can decide who you're falling in love, but you cannot actually control it, and because of that you are feeling less guilty and being judged more by society more enough in my actual case. Second of all, just think that even if they are correct and you can change it, it's likely to be very hard for you, right? Why? Because even if it's a choice, it's likely to be a choice depending on big structural things in your psychology and feeling and ideology. That means it's going to take you a lot of work, and you're not going to be easy to actually change your stuff. And that means that, yeah, that, that you prefer for you to not try to create a decision, but just believe and accept the person you're falling in love. Yeah, okay, so let's talk about the autonomy of love, and why are we increasing that in the government. So what kind of relationship we are talking about is not going to happen in the government side. But let's talk about LGBTQ plus people, because they already agree with us. You can now choose not to fall in love with these people and not go into a relationship with them. We're talking about minorities, okay? So white people go to dating black people in Israel, Mizrahim and Ashkenazim, stuff like that. We're talking about different social gaps, okay? So rich people dating poor people, educated people dating uneducated people, all of those stuff. Well, those things are likely to happen less in government side. We think there are two main mechanisms. A, the way that society perceives you, and B, your own willingness to get into this relation. Let's talk about how society perceives you. So today, society has to accept the fact that you're falling in love with people because they understand they cannot control it. That means that the fact that you have fallen in love with someone which is outside of your social scale or with your own sex, it's something that is not defining who you are. You're this person, and you're still as smart as you found, you are still as functional as you found, you are still as funny, and you can still make good decisions even if you fall in love with this other person which you don't accept and don't appreciate. That means even if they don't like your relationship, they are more likely to accept you and be willing to tolerate inside society.
You're right?
No. Also, in today we see all these movies where you cannot control your love, which means that all these people get this narrative outside of our culture of how you cannot control it, and if you fight it, your life will be miserable, and because of that, those people are more likely to understand that it's very hard for you to change who you're falling in love to, and become more accepted to the fact that you're entering your relationship. I think all of that means is that in our world, in government world, society will be a lot less accepting to your relationship. If you believe that it's telling something on you, you are making bad decisions, you are deciding to prioritize your own values over the values they like, you are deciding to do all the stuff, and more importantly, that you can control it. So you can stop falling in love with this person, you can get out of this relationship, and because of that, they are likely to apply a lot more pressure to get out of this relationship and not enter it in the beginning. I'm not going to talk about the way you are affecting yourself not entering the relationship, because I'm not going to have time. Maybe Naomi will edit later. What are the impacts of that? I think I already said it, but basically, in many cases, people just can't enter a relationship which they cannot control. If you cannot control the person you're falling in love to, you're not actively cannot go into any other good relationship because you're in love with someone else, but you're not acting by that because you feel all this pressure from society. But second of all, even if it's a choice, it just means that you're limiting your opportunities. Why? Because you're saying to yourself, oh, I'm never going to fall in love with a woman. Oh, I'm never going to date a black person, which means that you're limiting your autonomy and your choices in your love life. Before we continue, closing.
If you are in a homophobic society, people will judge you anyway. We don't understand why the societal judgment for you is that important in comparison to you not feeling helpless inside the relationship.
Okay. I think they already proved to you why you're going to be judged less and less at least accepted into society, so I think it's sense. But now let's also talk about relationship to engage the other part of you. So what do you think is happening in our world? I think that you're more likely to enter and get stuck in bad relationships which are not good for you. And I think that first of all it's important impact in this debate because we're talking about relationship, but second of all, it's impact later. Cool. Why I would like to get stuck? Okay, because what's happening today when you believe that you cannot do? A, you are less likely to believe you can change the state of your love feeling. Okay, you think that if you are in love or not in love, you are not going to enter this thing, and you are not going to stay up. You are not likely to be able to create the falling in love again because you cannot control it and you don't know how to change it and you don't know what you need to do to create it. What does that mean? It means that A, first of all, you are less likely to enter a relationship when you are not feeling in love. Okay, you are not likely to believe that you will be able to change it. Do that. But second of all, you are more likely to get out of the relationship once the love dies. Why is that important? Because love is just something that is very important in order to create this relationship. Why? Because it makes you want to be a part of this relationship, make you want to invest more time and more money and more of your emotional feeling inside it, and make you actually feel connected to the other side. In our world, when it's not in government world, when it's a choice, you're more likely trying to change it up from what is the negative.
Very much. We're very happy to welcome the Deputy Prime Minister.
Woo! Wait, I'll start in 3, 2, 1. So what I want to say is 2 things. I'm going to go over my colleagues' points, and I'm going to exactly explain moreover why it is better to be wanted and not needed, and why the perception of choosing makes you more responsible for your life and actually makes your romantic relationship better. But first I want to answer opening You say that in cases of manipulation, this is not the choice, because choosing someone and then someone manipulates you is not a choice. I mean, you make a choice, but it does not seem as a choice because you make an uncontrollable one. I'm saying that if we perceive romantic relationships as a choice and not as uncontrollable, there won't be this feeling of helplessness. When you enter a relationship and then get manipulated, it is a horrible feeling. It is undeniably a very, very sad thing to feel. But if you are choosing this, if you're choosing to be in this relationship, you can choose to get out of this relationship, which is much more difficult in an uncontrollable choice. Now, in reality, of course, we have relationships that are of choice and relationships that are controllable. But if you perceive them as a choice, it is much easier and much manageable to be in a relationship and actually take care of yourself and of your life. Moreover, you say that relationship is not more legit when it is uncontrollable. We said that relationships are legitimate when it is a choice. For example, if we look at extreme cases like pedophiles, it is not legitimate no matter what. And if they're perceived as a choice, there will be more harsh and more problematic ways to look at it, because this is a very problematic relationship. Now, which I'm going to go back on my points. Why it is better to feel wanted and not needed. First, I want to take POIs if anyone has any. Yes.
In your world, if you are in love with someone, you like to believe it is your choice, so you probably have a good reason. That means you are more likely to stay in such a relationship because you are feeling in love, even if though it's not your actual choice.
Not necessarily, because if you make a choice, you can also make to unmake your choice. As we make choices in life, you want to eat something, you regret it. You go to a class, you regret it. You do something, you're able to regret what you're doing and actually make a change with your life. If you're there uncontrollably, if you don't understand what you're doing, why you're doing this, how can you manage your life? Now I'm going to go back on my points. What is it better to feel wanted and not needed? Now, if you're wanted, as the Prime Minister said, if you want to go to a class, it is better fundamentally for relationships to want each other and not to need each other. This feeling of needness is not necessarily a good thing. Now, again, we are here talking about perceiving as a choice, and not actually is a choice. We know that in reality there are many kinds of relationships, but if you perceive
what you're doing is a choice. If you perceive your choice as wanting to be with that person, if you truly believe that you want to be with that person and don't actually need this person or depend on them, your relationship is much more stronger. It is better for you, for your partner, and for the outsiders and society as a whole. Moreover, to my second point, I'll explain furthermore. It is much better, having choice in relationship and in love matters gives you responsibility for your life. Now, I'm not saying that when you choose to be with someone, you're not responsible for your actions or what you're doing, but I'm saying this, it gives you much more freedom and much less helplessness in what you're doing, in who you are, in who you love. Not once again. Sorry. Even in toxic relationships, as we said, you can understand what you're doing, because making a choice is much more different than making an uncontrollable one. If you're making a choice to be with someone, if you actually want to be there, you can also work on things. If you, for example, we all say toxic relationship, manipulation, such bad and horrible thing, but sometimes people change. People help each other, they grow together in a relationship. And if you choose that, you can help the other person as much as they can help you. For all those reasons, choosing someone and perceiving as choosing someone is much better than choosing something as uncontrollable. As perceiving something that is uncontrollable, sorry. I'll take POIs again. Yes?
If you choose to be with
As a gay man living in a religious community, it's true, society might consider me both ways, but what happens when I personally know that I am making a choice to do something absolutely evil and go against God, even though I absolutely love God because I'm attracted to males, and there's nothing I can do to change that? I'm male, I'm male, sorry.
If you choose to do something that is, once again, against what you believe in, okay, you talk about what happens if I'm a gay man in a religious society and I choose to do something that is worse. It is problematic. But once again, we're not saying that love is uncontrollable. We want it to perceive as a choice, meaning that yes, you may fall in love uncontrollably. You can't help but falling in love, but it doesn't mean that you can't choose what you're doing. You can't look. Okay, I understand it's a bit problematic from a religious point of view. Okay, sorry. Fine. I truly don't know how to answer that, so I'll move on to my comment. If there is anything I want you to remember from what I said as a judge, is that love should be perceived as a choice. Love is something that can help people, something that is important in everyone's life. And if people have the feeling of want, have the feeling of someone loving them out of will, and have this fundamental truth that you want to be there, relationship for people and for society will be a much better thing. Thank you very much.
Prime Minister very much. We're zero competition to conclude the
אני פשוט כל כך מתרגשת, לא יכולה לשבות בעצמי.
Okay. Great. Beginning my speech in 3, 2, 1. A few things in my speech. First, I'm going to engage with this whole issue of investing in a relationship or trying to save it when you're not in love with the person, or trying to undergo this process, and explain why it is an enormous harm within this debate that causes a lot of suffering, both for people in relationships, but also for their children and their loved ones and everyone in their environment. And then going to also weigh and explain why we think that these harms that we show to people's relationships, plus the harms that we show to people who are in relationships that society deems inappropriate or wrong, and are just the most important thing within the debate. But first, some external rebuttal. And The first thing about this idea of people being able to leave relationships that are actively harmful to them, in which they are being manipulated, or there is a toxic relationship in which their behavior is being controlled. There's just missing a very critical link of why you would make the choice to leave if you're in love with this person and you're feeling these feelings. You still have to make the decision to try and change. But also being manipulated to think, you're being manipulated to think this relationship is fine, and there is no reason for you to actively choose to change your feelings. And even if you did try to fall out of love, you realized it would be better if you were out of love, this person is very likely able to also undermine that very process by manipulating you and preventing you from being able to undergo what is a very complex psychological process of trying to change your own feelings and how you perceive someone and how you feel about them. All of this meaning we don't think you gain any benefit. But note that even on our side, regardless of how you feel towards a person, people can come to you and say, we know that you love them, but this relationship is harming you regardless, and you can still leave that relationship based on that information. Falling out of love with someone is not a prerequisite to changing your behavior. In the same way that being sexually attracted to someone doesn't mean I have to have sex with them. There are many elements in which I think, well, forcing myself on them would be more harmful than positive, despite somehow realizing my impulse, so I won't do that. Now, on this issue of more criticism of pedophiles, I just want to remove it from the debate, saying that I just don't think there's a problem in the world of society justifying pedophiles and thinking that they're okay or that their actions are justified. As a rule, we're very protective of minors and of children because we think that any harm to them aren't legitimate. Regardless of what the cause to the harm was, they are harmed and we protect them. Anyway, don't think it's an issue. And now let's go into working on the relationship and this positive impact the government tried to create and explain why we think that it actually causes far more harm than good. But first, I'd love to take a few away from closing. Okay. So, in our world, if you fall out of love in a relationship, it is quite likely that you leave and you don't try to force it. Because you accept that there is no choice and that there is nothing you can do about that. You no longer love this person and there is no way that that is going to change. And therefore, there is no point in trying to make this relationship return or bring back that ability to love them. No, this isn't I'm slightly bored but I still care about the person. This is I don't love this person anymore. It's not our sex life isn't great, it's I don't love them at all. Now, we think that you're highly unlikely to succeed in trying to fall back in love with this person. So we think that even the attempt is just fruitless, and eventually you're going to have to admit that it was wrong and it was to no purpose, as Michal analyzed. But note that let's say that maybe it is possible, even if it is, the process itself is likely to be extremely harmful because unquestionably this is going to be hard. You're going to have to You're trying to trick yourself to change aspects of your own personality, to critique your own feelings, and you're likely going to feel very guilty because you chose to do something wrong. Because if love is a choice, you chose to fall out of love with this person in the first place, and you feel bad about that. In the same way that you would also feel guilty if you fell in love with someone that society told you you're not supposed to fall in love with because you chose to do that and to fall in love with that person you're not supposed to have. And it would probably just be a lot easier to learn to accept your feelings, accept that you're not in love with this person, and then figure out how to cope from there and how to work with the emotions that you have. You can still make choices, but you're not going to try and trick your psychology into loving this person. But lastly, note that the potential harms of this relationship continuing past when it should are far, far greater than the potential harms of having cut it off too early. Because at worst, you cut off a relationship that its potential is probably relatively limited if you were capable of falling out of love with this person to begin with. But on the worst in our side, the harms we are comparing the harms from a relatively amicable divorce or parting to one where a deteriorating, unhappy relationship that likely ends in a messier parting anyway, because it's likely that you didn't succeed in falling back in love, but in the meantime you built up more resentment and more frustration because you stayed in this negative situation longer and you tried to force yourself to be happy in the situation that you weren't. Then all these means that the divorce gets a lot messier, and in the interim years when you were trying, then everyone was a lot more miserable. It also means that because it happened later on in the relationship, you likely have more children who are going to be harmed as a result of this, more common assets that you're going to have to figure out how to divide and going to be harmed through, more people in your life who are going to be upset about this division between you because they're more used to it, it's been happening for longer. All these things mean that we think it is better to cut your losses earlier on than try to force something you cannot achieve, even for the off chance that maybe sometimes some people will succeed in falling back in love and remedying a mediocre relationship. Yes, closing.
Love comes and goes. The thing that's important is stability, support, and you feeling like you have someone you can trust.
So we think that your feelings of love are what allow you to invest in someone to that extent. We think that you need that internal drive of deeply caring about what happens to this person, about putting their needs on the same level as your own, about seeing them as an extension of yourself and someone that you care about more than other individuals and more than yourself. We think that these things aren't achieved through purely trust or habit, because it's very difficult for you to take the id and set it aside, to take your self-interest and avoid it in order to dedicate yourself to another, and we don't think it's likely to happen in a relationship unless you are in love with that person. We think at that point you start to feel all the hardship of having to constantly sacrifice and constantly accommodate that person, and you're far less likely to survive that. Now, why do we think that we win this debate? A, because of this enormous harm to relationships and to children of marriages, but second, because of the prevention of people who are attracted to people of the same sex or people who are attracted to people of other races from actually realizing their love and being happy, and then being told far more by society that they cannot do that. Note that there is extent. We think there's greater persecution, even if it exists to some extent on our side, it exists more on our side. Also note, our side isn't status quo. It's a world where the broad belief is that there is no choice, meaning on our side things get better than they are right now. They don't stay the way they are. Now we think that all these things are the most important. We think that relationships frequently strongly affect your self-esteem and the feedback that you receive from society and your ability to leave them, and you're better off being alone than being in one that is actively going to harmful. We think that these things can be overcome internally, and we think that just we affect the most people in the most instances. Please oppose.
We thank the opposition very much to open the bottom half. We're very happy to welcome the member of government.
Okay. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. 2 points in the speech. Where do we find a better person to be in a relationship with? And secondly, where the relationship is better once you're inside. Okay, so let's begin with rebuttals, and my first point will tie into it. So, the first opposition tells us that you actually don't choose who you are with, and society will judge you. A was saying that LGBT people are not in this debate, and this already responds to second opposition. Notice that the narrative is like, you are born gay, but you need to choose, but you are choosing which man you're going to be with. But secondly, we're saying that you do have a choice, right? Love happens when you spend time together, when you get to know deeply the other person. Like, when you have common interests and common experiences that you can talk about and all that. We're saying that this is why reality works. Like, this is why when you put a lot of people together and make them spend time together, love works, and this is why we have reality, right? We're saying that all of those stuff you choose to do, right? You choose to go on dates and spend time and go on parties with those people because you think that you want to fall in love with them and you want them to fall in love with you. This is all stuff that you do choose. But thirdly, and this is my first point, right? We're saying that a lot of time it's good to listen to the society pressure, right? Because we're saying that love fades. We're saying that all of those, I love them currently and I'm feeling those things to them, it's not going to last more than 5 years tops, right? But we're saying that stuff like the ideology, how I'm going to educate my kids, or how do I feel about religion, or what do I think about the household chores and all that? What do I think is the job of the woman? Those are stuff that are not going to change, and those are stuff that will influence your relationship in the future. Saying that if you're going to select your partner based on how much you love them when you're a teenager and making dumb stuff, this is going to fade, and you're going to be stuck in a relationship that is bad for you, and it's very difficult to get out of it once you're in. I'm saying that it's better to listen to those people who are telling you, no, it's not good to be with this secular kid because you'll educate the kids in a way that you don't like it. It's much better to actually listen to them and be in a relationship that you are able to do it. This happens much more in our side. In our side, you choose a partner who is and you consider much more how much your compatibility, how much you are similar in your ideology, how many kids does he want, how many kids do you want. But second point, we're saying that you will have a better relationship once you are inside. Not only will you choose a better partner, once you chose him, the relationship will be better. Because we're saying that, let's begin with the characterization, how they work in outside. Because in outside, you choose a person more out of rational, right? You have reasons to choose them, and you have reasons to choose this partner, right? Maybe he was the funniest, maybe he was the kindest, maybe just he's the prettiest, and you like him for who he is, right? We're saying that you always consider all of those facts. You always think about why you choose him and why he chooses you. This is what the aspect of choice, something that is very crucial in all the stuff that happens in your mind. So why is it better? A, we're saying that you know that he chose you, right? You know that he chose you. It means that for him you are the best. You know that there are reasons why he chose you, meaning perhaps you are the smartest, perhaps you think that you're the funniest, perhaps you think that you're the prettiest. We're saying that in society where you're never good enough, right? In a job, there's always someone who is better than you, always someone who is smarter than you, etc. We're saying that to have this place, this relationship, and to know that he chose you because you are literally the #1 for him, because he thinks that you are the best in the world, and he could have chosen anyone, but he chose to be with you, and he has reason for it. This is something that feels great, right? It's very important for you, right? Every day that it chooses to be with you is like the biggest compliment, because you know that you are good, you know that you are literally the best, and there's no one better for him than you. But secondly, we're saying that you choose to be with him, and you always consider why you choose to be with him, right? You always have those thoughts of, he is the funniest, and I'm thinking about it, and when I consider whether or not I want to be with him, I'm thinking about those traits, right? I know that he's good and kind and funny, and this is why I'm with him, and this is why I'm feeling lucky to be with him, because he's great, and I'm always thinking about how great he is. In the comparative, yes, I love him, but he's not that amazing, he's not that great, and I'm with him just because I have to, because this is what my feelings dictate me to do. Before I move on, second.
The existence of a choice is not changing either side of the house. We're talking about perception right now.
Okay, first I explain why there is choice, second all analysis test. So let's move into C. We're saying that you put more effort, right? A, you know that he can choose to live whenever he wants, but B, you know that he chose you, or at least you think that he can live. I don't care about the second opposition. You think that he can live whenever he wants, but B, he chooses you according to your traits, according to your action and all that. It means that you need to put pressure, because if you're not going to put pressure, put effort, I'm sorry. You need to put effort, because if you're not going to put effort, he will leave you. It means that you will put more effort and be more romantic, do those very kind gestures, and bring flowers and on your birthday and all that, not just leave it as it is and be on the TV all the time. It means that he needs to take a part in the household chores and all of that, because you need to actively all the time make sure that he will continue to choose to love you. In the opposition side, he just loves you as it is, and you have no influence on that. On our side, you know that you have influence. He needs to actively choose to love you, and you can influence it by actually making sure he will love you by all of those actions and effort that you make. We're saying that we'll have a better relationship for all these reasons. So let's conclude this debate. We're saying that you will choose better relationship, because the relationship that you will choose will not be dictated by just luck and who I happen to love in this current moment, but they will be influenced by how much do I think he's going to be compatible with me, and those are traits which will influence me for much longer, because love fades. But secondly, we're saying we'll have better relationship when you are inside, because you are always thinking that you are great, because he loves you and you are the best for him, which is great for self-esteem in the world that we live in, and because you'll actually put more effort, which is something that is very important, because when you're feeling that he doesn't love you anymore, doesn't put effort anymore, just because he takes you for granted, because he thinks that you can't live, this is something that is terrible. For all those reasons, please propose.
member of government very much. We're very happy to call upon the member of opposition to start the case of result of opposition.
Well done.
They call an ambulance. It's all recorded, just so you know.
Awesome. You can go on the TV show Rina's Special Moments. It's Itay. Okay. Thank you, wonderful panel. You're looking amazing today. Okay. 3, 2, 1. I'll explain why people in abusive relationships are not choosing to be in it through manipulation, etc. What I'm going to prove today, first of all, why these people lose the much needed support from society to get out of their abusive relationships, which Itay will explain why this is the most important thing, and secondarily, in direct clash with closing government, I will explain why you actually have a healthier relationship in our world. Moving on to the first point. What happens today? Women end up in abusive relationships because the person starts out charming, like you said, they're manipulative, they want them to fall in love with them, the love initially exists, they're perfect, they end up living with them, they end up living in their house, and the person starts turning abusive. What do they usually do in this abusive relationship? They create a society where the woman doesn't have an education, she doesn't know how to work when she leaves the house. They create a dependency where all their financial money is coming from the husband. We explain to them every day how they will not be able to survive on their own, how this is the only way they'll survive, they have to stay with the husband, this is necessary, and it creates a long-term psychological dependency for the woman, and then it's created. Now, how are they perceived by society today? People look at them as victims. It's victims of addiction. Okay, it's victims of abuse and victims of addiction. When you have love in your brain, it is not just a choice. It isn't a choice. Factually, I know this isn't the debate, but factually, in the debate, love is not a choice. It's in the addictive center of the brain. It is shown. It shows that someone who is addicted to love can have the same level of addiction to drugs, heroin, etc. Something that society does perceive as an illness, something that it needs to be helped for. Now, what will happen tomorrow when we make it that it's a choice? Society is going to be looking at these people as they are choosing to be in this relationship. We have proof that society doesn't love helping people that are choosing to be in this situation. For example, if someone is if someone is poor and not starving, then they're not going to be suddenly giving them a ton of money. If someone is unemployed but totally capable of working, the government's not just going to hand them a bunch of stipends. Bailing out of debt. But what do? We have a bunch of support programs for addicts, for helping people get out of situations where they really have no control and society is there to help them. Now, what is this support and why is it so significant for the female? I already explained how this woman is in a situation where whether or not it's true, she believes she cannot work on her own. Odds are she does not have the education. I will take you at 5 minutes. Odds are she does not have the education, she does not have what is required, she does not have the life experience, and she also does not have the confidence in the slightest to be able to work. Now, what happens with this support, okay? What happens is, what we have in support is it's not just, oh, we support women, okay? There are organizations that exist right now where they come and they go to any woman that could possibly complain of abuse. They can complain of abuse anonymously without it going out there. They can offer psychology, support, psychology for their kids that are also stuck in this situation. They can offer them part-time education in community colleges. These are all things currently offered in the status quo world. These are charity organizations that people donate to out of the benefit of their heart because they understand that these women need this help. They're stuck in this situation and there's nothing they can do about it. Now, the woman does not have a choice about leaving. Let us be very clear. This is deep psychological manipulation. This is not a choice. It is much of a choice, or even less than any other form of addiction. It's dangerous. She is a victim that the government needs to look out for, that we as a society need to look out for. What the person is promising, they're promising that you and your kids are not going to be screwed. Your kids are going to have a place where they can get educated. You can actually leave. This will be safe, etc. Oh, and more than that, you're also getting a support system where you see other women, where other women explain to you that this is normal. We have gone through this as well. What you're feeling, this need to stay, we felt it too. It does not make this man super special. It does not make this man the person you need to stay with. It is an addiction. It is not a choice. We all feel the same way. And love isn't real. Yes, tell me.
Considering the older manipulation that was discussed in this debate, how the society can help those people if they happen to know this?
What?
How the society can help those people escape this manipulation?
I just explained how society helps. They give a bunch of support systems. They give psychology. They give them vacation. They give them an ability to know that they can survive outside on their own in a way that doesn't exist in your world. Because I just spent 2 minutes on this. Okay, moving on. Now, sorry. Why is the relationship better? Okay. What happens in everyday relationship? People feel unstable. People are worried that the partner's going to leave them. People are worried about all different things in this society. inside in this thing because people are always insecure in general. Now, what happens, and most importantly, when people enter relationships, they're not the same people they were 15 years later. So why is this important? If you're falling in love and it's based completely on a choice, you're choosing to marry the person that you met at this point, which means I'm 21. If I'm 21 and I meet a 21-year-old and I'm like, okay, this person's perfect, he's perfect for me, I see an entire future with him, he's doing X, Y, Z, these are his hobbies, he enjoys watching this TV show, and etc., and I love being with them. And then they change because they're 21. What happens is that you get to this place where in the place where you're constantly worried that every change you are going to undergo will cause your partner to leave you because it's a choice that they love you. It is not something that happens automatically. What keeps relationships together? Relationships will fight, relationships will go through issues, people will fight. But what happens is that even when they feel angry, even when they feel like, I'm done with these people, I don't want to be with them anymore, they stay because there's love. They know that it's just a fight, they know that it's angry, and they know that love isn't directly about only the action, it's also about the long term, what has been invested, etc. Now, what happens in government's world? In government's world, every single time I make a mistake, I'm going to be so terrified that this is going to be the thing that leaves me. True, this can happen in both sides of the world. But what is stronger now is that the person can't just say, but I love you, and convince you that the love is stronger, convince you that, you know, the emotion you feel for me, that love, I feel the same thing. I'm not choosing it. It's something I feel so strongly, and it allows to be for reassurance. What does this create? A, people not actually communicating their problems properly because they're so worried that that will be the thing that triggers them to leave. Second of all, it's actually half of Karni's speech of, if I don't put in the effort, he'll leave me, which makes it into a place where these people are going to be essentially slaves. Whoever feels more insecure in the relationship because they're sure it's a choice, because they're sure, in 5 seconds, because they're sure it's a choice, because they're sure it's not something they're going to be able to choose to get into, then, yes.
Do people not make bad choices? Is bad choice not a thing in your world? Because yeah, you can make a choice, but it's wrong. And moreover, in the worst case scenario, you don't feel helpless because you have that choice. And saying people.
Okay, 50 seconds. Okay, you're saying that people don't have a choice in my world. I'm saying that choosing to love someone isn't a choice. But more importantly, when you tell someone who's going through abuse, when you tell someone who's been manipulated into it, who's completely and utterly a victim, that she is choosing this, and it's all her fault, and there's really nothing that gets her out of it, and that means if she's choosing it, she deserves it. If she deserves it, there's nothing to do out of it. That affects her and her potential children who did not choose to be in this situation in the slightest instance. So, overall, first of all, we proved that those who most need our help, those are the victims of abuse. You guys all talked about generations, but those who really, really, really are the victims of abuse and really need our help and society's help, under tomorrow, they will not get the help from society because society will not look at them as those who need the help. Secondarily, completely imposing government's clash of the better relationship. You won't have a healthy relationship. You're going to have a toxic relationship where a girl feels like they have to have sex when they don't want to, where they feel like they have to give when they don't want to. They have to constantly blow their husband so that the husband won't leave them because, you know, love is a choice, and if they don't do everything absolutely perfectly, then they're going to leave you. For all these reasons, we have a much more toxic relationship, much more healthy society. Please oppose.
Okay, thank the member of opposition very much. Thank you, the government's bench. We're very happy to go on the government's bench.
כששני הצדדים נותנים דברים בשביל הצד השני, משקיעים בצד השני. טוב, עוד על זה.
This doesn't work on us, yeah?
No, you can't understand me.
You don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Let alone that it doesn't work on us.
Yeah, obviously you can't understand anything I'm saying.
I was talking about it. Okay,
Just a second. Okay. ככה אני לא רואה אתכם, אז אני יכולה לדמיין שאתם הרבה יותר מחייכים ממה שאתם רואים. Okay, starting in 3, 2, 1. 2 clashes in this debate. First, in maintaining a relationship. Secondly, finding a relationship / getting out of the relationship if it's bad. Let's start with maintaining the relationship. Firstly, why this is so important? Because we think that staying overall in a relationship is the thing that gets you the most amount of self-fulfillment. If your relationship is good, you feel better. If the partner is happy, you feel happy. It allows you to discover yourself. It allows you stability in the very worst moments that you have. The stability can help you fulfill yourself in other areas, and so we think this is simply more important. But secondly, we think on this clash there is much more influence that is very certain on anyone that is experiencing a relationship, according to our analysis. And secondly, we just think more influence overall on the world, because if opposition side focuses on very marginal cases on LGBT people, on people that are maybe have differences in classes, we're focusing on everyone. This clash is applicable to everyone, and so we think this is more important. Let's talk about what came on OG. We think on OG they talked about how this is a choice. I feel better. Firstly, we don't understand in OG why this is good. Secondly, we think that they have a problem in the sense that the fact that they never explain why you know that you are wanted, why you know that the other side wants you as well. And so we think Karni feels this crucial burden and gives us OG's impacts better than them. But secondly, we get from OO the point about how if I don't love someone, I would simply go. And then Rina repeats it, and we think this is derivative. Let's answer this both. Firstly, we think the problem with in Naomi's speech is that she says, well, you make a lot of effort, you sacrifice a lot. This is very, very bad. We think that the problem is, firstly, the other side still loves you. So if you go out of this relationship and this is rebutted, you will feel very, very bad about them. So you don't want to do that. You will have damages for them. Secondly, we think that in the point in which the love fades, which is very common, happens to everybody, you have kids together, you have common experiences, you have things that are keeping you together, meaning that your incentive is to try and keep this relationship together. But the third thing, and this was given in the POI, love is not the thing that is most important. We think at the end you have a person in front of you that knows you, knows what is good to you, knows that you like your coffee with sugar and milk and how to make it correctly. And this is much more important, how you have this other person that is simply for you, simply knows you best and understands you and can support you. We think at this point, because you have kids together, it is crucial that you will try and keep this relationship, and we think you get that only on our side. Notice that this is not a sacrifice, that this doesn't harm this psychologically. Why? Because in our society there is this narrative that sacrificing for a relationship is a good thing, so you get fulfillment out of sacrificing, so there is no harm here. What Karni gives you and why this is more important. Firstly, Karni tells you about how you know there are reasons for you to being chosen and in comparison to other people. You know he chooses me. I know he chooses me because I'm pretty, because I'm funny, because he loves me. He talks to me about those reasons all the time. So I know that in the comparative, I question myself all the time. Why does he love me? Can he leave me if the love fades away? If this is now not his choice? Because I know that love is something that is temporary, meaning that I feel less certain about my relationship, meaning that I would feel inconfident, meaning that my relationship will be bad because I will project things that I'm feeling to him and how he acts for me. This harms the relationship. Even this lack of confidence harms the relationship and its ability to continue. So even if everything is good and I have this lack of confidence, it will harm me in the future, meaning that we get just most impact. But secondly, Karni tells you about how I try more. I try to make the other side more protected, more loved, do things that he likes because of me. I try to invest in this relationship and make it long-lasting because I don't think like he has no control here. I know he can stay. Karni talks to you about why it makes the relationships better, because we have this reciprocity. He does things for me, I do things for him. We love each other because of the things, because of the sacrifices, because we know we are loved by each other. And why this is crucial? Because this is how good habits in a relationship is being built. This is how communication is being built. This is how making sure that the other side is good, it is being built. Meaning that if we base that in an early stage of our relationship, it is something that will continue us for the long term and make just our relationship better. So we think this creates just good relationships overall. And then Rina comes and says, oh, they require sex out of you. No, we think this is your world. We think in your world you can say to the woman, you love me, you can control yourself, you won't leave me, so give me sex. We think in our world, because she has choice, because I know she can just quit the relationship, I don't do that, I want to keep her inside of the relationship, so I try and I sacrifice more, I get better relationship. This is a huge impact only on the side. Yes, Rubin.
The average person falls in love with many individuals throughout their life and doesn't choose to marry all of them, but love is also a critical factor to create motivation, to spend time and invest in building trust. You can exactly try and fall in love with many, many people. The things, specifically because of that, the things that actually changes is whether you try and keep this relationship. If you try and build
this relationship. In a positions world, you just quit because you feel like there is no choice, because you don't sacrifice inside of the relationship, meaning that you get much shorter of the relationship and that doesn't fulfill you. Let's talk about entering or going out of a relationship. We have this point on CO about violent relationships. Firstly, we think this is already did the weighing. Very few of them not show how much important, much manipulation. Agree with all. Secondly, listen. Why do we get more support systems in our world, and this is directly about? Firstly, society feels like it can change you, meaning that it tries more, meaning that it has more influence over you when you try, meaning that society will come to you, approach you, and notice that the things that is important here are not psychologists, but your family, your sister that knows you best, because if you won't come and try, psychologists won't come anyways, because you won't show yourself, you won't confess that you have a problem. If society feels like it can change you, it will try, and you will come to psychologists, and this is more important because this is logically prior. Why this is important as well? Because in the comparative society is giving up on you because it feels like it has no choice here, because it feels like it can never try. But secondly, Karni talks to you about simply better relationships. You choose in the right place who are the people you are going to hang up with, meaning that you have those chances of getting yourself into those better relationships because you try to find people that are more compatible to you. But in the third case, about the LGBT people, etc., we think that you try in the good cases, you try and justify yourself to society because you know now you have reasons, and you try to justify yourself to the society why you chose this person. We think in this sense you get more society acceptance when those are the good cases, because now you have reasons, you can communicate them to the society, and there is more chance of society actually trying to understand you and believe to you. So because we want on better relationships, because we want on how you will get more good relationships, we're ready to propose.
Okay, we thank the government group very much to conclude the debate. We're very happy to have the opposition with here.
וואי, הוא עשה לי באטל ויעל עשה כזה ככה ואני התגנתי.
כן, לא, זה היה מאוד מצחיק.
Clashes in this debate, abusive relationships and stability of relationships. I think CG did a good weighing about why love at its core is out of the debate, because it's like short term, because it fades after a little while. We'll talk more about that in the second clash. But let's first explain how we win the abusive relationship clash, and then weigh over the others. So, what do we get from OG? From OG we get that victims think they have a choice, and that helps them. Why? Because they can choose to leave. We think that OG admits it's an addiction, right? We get that from OG, and it is also true. So people blame themselves that they don't leave, right? They think that they have a choice. They don't have the choice because of all of those things, and therefore they can't leave, but they blame themselves because they can't leave. Then OO comes and tells us, whoa, those women are under manipulation. We'll get to more on that later, but we think that the fact that they are under manipulation doesn't mean that they don't want to leave. It just means that they believe that they can't leave. They believe that they can't help the kids without the husband. They believe that they can't live on their own, or get a life on their own, or get a house on their own. We think that that doesn't change in this debate. What changes in this debate is the way that we help them. Because today, we perceive them as people who are victims, right? As society, we help victims. We don't help people with bad life choices, which is what we will perceive them tomorrow. We think that it is acceptable to help only those with bad luck, that this is not their choice. Rina gave a lot of analysis on that. We think And then we get from Yael, society feels that it can change you, so it helps more on your side. First, no really engagement with the analysis. But more of that, she herself admits that society also believes your sister can change you. So why should they change you? Your sister can come and help you. It's a personal thing. It's a thing of it's a choice of you. There is no need for outside assistance because you can solve this problem yourself. But let's talk about the way of helping. Right? Because if it is not likely, if it's likely that we can convince her to leave, society will try and convince her to leave, as Yael says. But we think that even today she wants to leave. She just believes she can't. Right? It's all her want just to get away from that, to take her kid away from that. The harmed women, but they can't do it. They believe that they can't do it. How does help looks on our side? On our side, we admit that we can't make them leave. We can't convince them to leave. So we try to help them from inside. We give them schools to the children. We give them psychological, like therapy for them, for the children, to help their emotional state. We help them believe that, yes, and also we reach out to more of them, and we notice more of them because we admit that they can do that on their own. We need to reach to them, and moreover, we give a lot more education about this because we think that when you're in it, there is no way out. So we need to prevent it from the beginning. So we educate more children about it. We talk about more about that. So this is why we win this class. Let's wait over the other things in there. First of all, it's the biggest impact. It's the biggest damage, right? It's their whole life. They're trapped in this relationship when they have no way out of. Their kids are there. It's all their life. They put a lot of their years in it. They can't actually get out. We think that these are the people with the least choice in this debate, because those people are under manipulation, because their world is perceived in a way that they can't actually exercise their autonomy and make choices because they don't see the world as it is. Right? We think that all four of you are wanting to do a PY. That's very impressive. We think that if we're actually making their life better, we're helping the people that cannot make their own life better. Third, we think this is logically higher for those people, right? Because all of those people can't actually profit from all the good thing government wants them to get because they are stuck in a bad relationship that will do that anyway, right? We think that they can't profit from all the advantages of the debate. Fourthly, we think it's more long-term. And this is actually a thing CG says, but I'll repeat it. Because relationship is more long-term, because they're stuck in this relationship when we have no way of getting them out, every impact on this relationship is the largest impact in this debate because it's long. Fifthly, we think it's more tangible and consistent because what other teams are talking about are feelings. And we talk about the way that we can actually affect their lives, the way we can give therapy to their children, things that they actually can get out of, not now. We think that helping them on the physical level is much more important than the feelings who change constantly and are not static and not very long term. And sixthly, we think that other relationships are pretty much good, right? Because other relationships, we have two loving sides at all. We think that they are hanging out with each other. They don't have a lot of fights and they support each other. So we think the most important relationship in the debate are those you can't get support from. Let's take first half.
Wait, so you really said we don't help people, we help people with bad luck, not people with bad choices. Do we not help drug addicts? Do we not people who make bad choices in life? How did they get out? Just don't want to help anyone who made a bad choice.
Thank you. We help people who did bad, who are drug addicts because we believe they can't help themselves, because they believe that they're addicts. They need this substance to live. No, this is why we help those people more. But let's get into CG's case and actually way over OO, because OO are talking about how knowing you love someone actually affects the relationship. We think that shortly there is no love matter. When you do all these processes of breaking up or just not returning home from a soccer match or returning more lately and actually not giving more to the woman, you don't think this is because she doesn't love you. We think that you don't know how love exists, but we think that even more relationships and stable relationships. Let's get to that, because what Rina explains is that the great feeling of someone loves me is actually balanced by the feeling of dread that they'll leave me. That this, like the Talmud says, that this love is dependent on a thing, and when the thing goes, the love goes, and I can't be actually in this relationship. Yael tells you that you don't suffer because you put more in this because of the narrative, right? But we think that the dread always exists because you are fearful of people leaving you. The narrative is only justifying this dread, amplifying it, making you more afraid because this is because the feeling that you're feeling is with the narrative and therefore is justified. This is why we both clashes. Thank you.
This was potentially a tricky debate to judge. I'm very glad to say that all members of the panel ended up seeing it the same way and rather quickly. So we reached rather, I wouldn't say easy, but rather smooth consensus decision. I'll give you 2 bits of explanation, very quick ones, why it was so tricky to judge, then the rankings, and then quick rationale to approach us all for feedback later as we are in the central room and we want to allow people to get back in. It was the panel's feelings that 3 things. 1, a lot of things were asserted in this debate and not necessarily proven or showed or demonstrated. Secondly, it's a feeling that we have that I can say I have a lot of examples for this. A lot of teams were very deterministic, meaning they said something is like this and it's basically like this all the time. So in a bad relationship, the victim cannot leave because they're under manipulation and the manipulation obscures their mind, period, no exceptions. Or I'm not saying you said no exceptions, you made it sound as if this is very deterministic. They will demand more in you, they will demand you to invest more, you will become slaves. Very deterministic. In most relationships, they're fine, there are 2 loving sides and their children. A lot of lack of nuance in a lot of sayings of all teams. Lastly, and perhaps most important, whether implicitly or explicitly, a lot of teams in this debate debated the merits of having a choice in loving someone or not having a choice in loving someone. That is not the debate. That is not the motion. The motion is the perception of loving someone, or the perception of being the choice, sorry, or the perception of loving someone being uncontrollable, and the impact of that, or that change in perception. Now, some teams made it explicit, some teams made it implicit, and we had to debate whether we would be charitable with those teams, or whether we would say that's not really directly connected to the motion. At the end, I have to say, we were charitable, I think, to all teams in this debate, but let's make it clear as a point of feedback. If the debate is about perception, you need to talk more precisely, more explicitly, more clearly about the perception. So those are important pieces of feedback all around. At the end of the day, we all, in a rather smooth consensus decision, ended up giving the win to the opening opposition, the second place to the closing government, the third place to the closing opposition, and the fourth place to the opening government. Let's understand why this happened. We start with the opening government. The panel felt there was not a lot of impact that stood from opening government vis-a-vis opening opposition, and the impact that you did show, one views something as a choice, so therefore they have more of a choice. We don't feel that was deeply analyzed or proven, and it did not necessarily withstand the answer from opening opposition. There's a difference between knowing something and acting on it and choosing to do something. It did not necessarily withstand that attack. And also, and that was very, very detrimental to your case. Both of you admitted in real life it's probably not a choice. One of you said sometimes and sometimes, one of you said in real life it's probably not a choice. But the perception of choice, you did say about that, you did talk about it explicitly, is good. Why it was good, as I said, was not particularly carefully analyzed, but also opening opposition told you, so you basically have to defend the lie according to yourselves that you have a choice. And we did not feel that that was particularly carefully done. That this lie was indeed defended as per your own admission. I think, anybody lie שיש לך את המים שלי? או שאלה מים שלי או שאלה?
זה המים שלי.
תביא לי תודה. איתי. So the opening government, we felt, and we did feel both closing teams insofar as we are charitable to them, and we give them, and we buy the extensions of as directly related to promotion, come on top of opening the government, and that regrettably gets rid of the space. I'll go on to closing opposition. Closing opposition has this case, and I'm going to talk to you personally later. Look, it is rather clear at extension, it becomes clearer at whip, but Rina, that's really a matter of style. You're a great speaker, and you need to adjust. No, it's not that you have bad style, you need to adjust at the very least to rhythm. We'll talk about it later. I found at times that it was difficult to follow exactly what you said and to decide whether it was directly linked to perception or not, and exactly what you're talking. And do you think all relationships are abusive, or are you talking about those who are, which are? Not sure, but it was clear and clearer, I think. So, thank you, right? Anyway, we totally got your case. The perception of victims of abusive relationships will change, and therefore, because it's uncontrollable, society will help them in many, many ways. I'm sorry?
It's fine.
No, because okay. Because as per your team, we help. I think the exact quote was, "We help those with bad luck, not those who make bad decisions." I think that was the exact quote, if I'm not mistaken. That premise, none of the panel agrees with. We think the example of drug addicts is of persons, which was very pertinent in this debate, is not of persons with bad luck, but rather of persons who made, they might also have bad luck, right? But of persons who made bad decisions, and we help those people. All of the panel feels that we do help people who make bad decisions all the time. The premise of this change of perception will have this impact, none of the members of the panel subscribe to. This is what we understand to be your impact, and we did not feel that impact was founded on a premise that held water in this debate. In addition, we think that the engagement with the closing government, I wouldn't say it's not there. Obviously, it's there, but it's lacking at least in some way. I think you're right. I think Rina, you, I think, gave a point of information, I think, in the earlier stages of the debate, saying this debate is about perception. Choice is there or not there on both sides of the house. I think that needed to be said explicitly, or at least more clearly in your speech as engagement, and show us why their case was not directed, and you come on the upper, and you have the upper hand. We do not believe that was said, at least not in a way that we could gather, or we could grasp from your speech. So we did not buy the premise of the impact, and that was, to us, your major contribution to this debate, and therefore you got the third place. I hope that is in the very least clear. We'll be happy to discuss it. Later. From closing government, we got two contributions. One, you choose a better relationship because you choose based on a number of things. Look, there's no way for us to be charitable to that. That is dependent on whether you do have a choice, not on perception, not on perception of choice. So that, in particular, I do not feel is worth a lot of credit in this debate. You do have the impact that because, let me say something that arguably you didn't say, because you have the perception that the other person has a choice, and you believe, therefore, they have a choice to leave you, you therefore will invest in the relationship. Now, was it said? Maybe. Was it said in a way that I remember vividly off the back of my mind? Absolutely not. Were we charitable to you on that, as we were charitable to all teams in this debate that is directly connected to the motion? So we believe in And I think it was framed nicely when the closing government said, look, this does not only pertain to abusive relationships, this does not pertain only to LGBT, this does not only pertain to minorities, this pertains to all relationships, this is true across the board, to all relationships. We think this is a bigger impact and one that was more founded at the premise than that of the closing opposition. And we think, by the way, closing opposition, I neglected to say something, just there was no doubt in our minds that you did add onto opening opposition. There was no, we didn't think it was a repetition or a just to be clear on that. So we think we come on top of closing opposition, and on top of opening government. What happened vis-a-vis opening opposition? So opening opposition gives us two things. First, they are the first and clearest in this debate to note what the debate is really about, really perception and not having a choice, or lacking of having a choice, which you make an entire point seemingly about. Secondly, they say there will be, in our world, in your world, I'm sorry, there will be less diverse relationship across the board, not just race or sexual orientation, but social class and so on, and that's a bad thing. Intuitively, the panel agrees that's a bad thing. You say that's a good thing because, as far as the panel can understand, it's better for you to choose your relationships not based on love, but based on, quote, well, how you view gender roles, how one makes your coffee, how your approaches to educating your kids, and so on and so forth. Two things. One, again, the debate is about perception of choice. This point is reliant on whether there is a choice or there isn't one. Secondly, we just don't feel that is realistically the case. And thirdly, I mean, we don't think this is realistically how people would, in any side of the house, would choose or decide on relationships. And thirdly, we don't think that this is necessarily good. We don't think it's necessarily good to choose a relationship based on your views on gender roles or your approach to educating the children. It is not shown to us, in the words of one of the members of the panel, why this is a good thing. Yes, love will fail, but is this alternative better? I don't know. Naya and I view gender roles very much the same, and we fight all the time. Okay, so it's not shown to us. It's not shown to us why this is good. Opening opposition gives us both the impact of more diverse relationships across the board, the impact of not feeling guilty, if I'm not mistaken, of being in an abusive relationship, because if you perceive being in an abusive relationship as your choice, you therefore feel guilty. It's a good thing that you wouldn't. And the ability to leave an abusive relationship, plus the differentiation and the distinction between choice and perception of choice. And on that, and it was a close debate all around, but on that we feel they have won today's debate. I hope this makes sense at the very least. I hope this is clear. You are very welcome to come to either of us for more clarifications and personal feedback. Best of luck in the next round of the debate. Thank you very, very much.
Michal.